What's going on, everybody? Justin Fensterman back with you. How's that weather out there? It was pretty crazy for half the games on the Week 8 Sunday slate when it comes to fantasy football. Let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about the latest trends in fantasy football with the latest Stock Watch report. Let's talk about a few players trending up and down when it comes to your fantasy football teams. Let's get to some players and dominate like we always do. First player on the rise, Keenan Allen. It's always great having players with safe floors, and as a result of Justin Herbert's stellar rookie campaign, Allen has been benefiting big time. While Herbert has frustrated fantasy players a bit by hitting random, in the fantasy world, wide receivers for scores, Allen has scored a touchdown in 3 of his last 5 games. There's some familiarity. He has received double-digit targets in all but just 2 games this season. He's surpassed the 20-point mark in his last 2 games, receiving 24 targets combined between those 2 games, in PPR, mind you. If this isn't enough of an endorsement for Allen, his schedule over the next few weeks is very favorable as he faces the Raiders, Dolphins, and the pitiful Jets. Also on the rise, or should be on the rise, Chase Edmonds. It should be Chase Edmonds' week with Kenyon Drake expected to be out for the next game or 2. At this moment, Chase Edmonds should be featured heavily overall as he's been active in the passing game as well. I put the emphasis on should because we can expect Kyler Murray to vulture a couple of touchdowns along the way. Reports came out Monday, though, that the Cardinals have said that they think that Drake is not as hurt as originally thought. It's frustrating that Edmonds hasn't received more carries because he's been seeing better results on the ground than Drake, rushing for 6.1 yards per carry this year, while Drake is rushing for 4.3 yards per carry. Edmonds has also caught at least 5 balls in 3 of his last 4 games. Finally on the rise, TJ Hockenson. The tight end position has been a complete mess this year, and it's hard to find truly reliable players at the position for any form of consistency. Hockenson has been getting fed a bit more and is looked at in the red zone as well. With Kenny Golladay suffering a Week 8 hip injury, this could mean even more love for Hockenson in the Lions passing game if Golladay is sidelined. Even though Hockenson broke his touchdown scoring streak, snapping it after scoring in 3 straight matchups, he was targeted 10 times in Week 8 and still caught 7 passes. This was the most amount of targets he received this year, and the least amount of targets he's received all year is 4. The Lions have a juicy matchup coming up against a poor Minnesota defense, and Hockenson should be in the position to produce double figures in PPR. Let's talk about players who aren't your best friends in fantasy right now, and let's start with those Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson. Just when you think things have to get better for Jackson, you drafted him in the 2nd round, right? Wrong. Left tackle Ronnie Stanley, just a few days after signing a massive contract extension, suffered a season-ending ankle injury, taking even more protection away from Jackson. If you have him, you paid for him, and you're kind of stuck with him unless you sell him very low. Is Jackson having a horrible year? No, but he's certainly not hitting value, and his numbers have been all over the place. He's been very boom or bust. His passing has been very, very bad, just completing 60.5% of his passes. That's one of the lowest percentages among quarterbacks. He's not even the most impactful quarterback on the run this year. That title is currently held by Kyler Murray. Sticking with the Ravens, what about Marquise Brown, also trending down? A lot of players were shocked that it was being recommended to bench Hollywood Brown this past weekend. Why? And yes, he did score a touchdown, but that was his only reception of the game. He's a risk to start at this point. 1 reception, even though he scored, not good enough. In fact, Brown has hit double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues just 3 times in 7 games. He hasn't surpassed 100 yards receiving since Week 1. It has nothing to do with snaps either because he's been playing way more snaps than any other Ravens receiver. Between Lamar Jackson's struggles and Brown getting the top shadow from the opposition's strongest corners, it's hard to trust him even as a flex in 2 wide receiver starting leagues. He's been getting the targets overall, just not a ton of big plays. Finally on the downswing, Mike Davis. Overall, Davis has been a very impactful fantasy pickup filling in for the injured Christian McCaffrey. He's been very active in both the passing game and on the ground. But this should be it. The return of McCaffrey in Week 9. Nothing is a sure thing, but if McCaffrey returns to the field as expected, Davis is going to take a back seat and he'll become unsafe to start. I don't see him having standalone value sharing the backfield with Christian McCaffrey. I don't see it being a share at all. Don't drop Davis yet. Let's see if he's impressed the Panthers coaches enough to earn his own role. Plus, McCaffrey is coming off of an injury, so what's to say that he's not going to re-injure his ankle? It can happen. But when it comes down to the Panthers and Christian McCaffrey, they paid him a lot of money, so they are going to give him as much run as possible. Regardless of McCaffrey's status, Davis has had a rough last couple of matchups. After receiving 10 targets in Week 5, Davis has received just 10 targets combined in the 3 games since. Why aren't they throwing to him a bit more? Davis has not hit double figures in PPR in his last 2 matchups. Maybe if they use him in the passing game a little bit more, he could save value and be a 1-week Band-Aid. But for now, with McCaffrey coming back into the mix, you gotta keep him on the bench. And that is your Stock Watch, FA Nation. Never give up. You could be under 500. You can have the mindset your season's over, or you can have the mindset to dominate, to turn things around, to utilize the tools on fantasyalarm.com, to hang with your family, the staff we have on fantasyalarm.com. This is your time. This is your moment. Let's turn those seasons around and let's assure those top teams make the playoffs en route to winning a championship. We're a family, and that's what families do. They win together as one, as they should. FantasyAlarm.com, always dominate. No other option. We just win.